Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. I'm Margaret Brennan. The Trump administration has seen turbulent weeks before, but this one left Washington reeling. On the policy front, the president endorsed positions on gun control that appeared to be more in step with Democrats, confusing Republicans and the NRA. In a freewheeling televised meeting with lawmakers, he suggested that when it came to potential threats,
take the guns first, go through due process second.
That would be unconstitutional. He endorsed a bill tightening background checks at gun shows proposed by Pennsylvania Republican Pat Toomey and Democrat Joe Manchin, and demanded to know why it didn't include raising the purchase age for some weapons to 21.
We didn't address it, Mr. President. Look, I think
why? Because you're afraid of the NRA, right?
The president insisted he wasn't afraid of the NRA, but after meeting with their top lobbyists, the White House signaled he backed off, and the NRA said he agreed with them. Republicans downplayed the president's evolving positions.
Well, you may have noticed that interesting reality TV show at the White House.
But the president had another surprise policy announcement, this one also supported by some Democrats.
We'll be imposing tariffs on steel imports and tariffs on aluminum imports. It'll be 25% for steel. It'll be 10% for aluminum.
Republicans weren't the only ones unhappy with that. The stock market dropped 500 points. U.S. trading partners were furious, and even the Wall Street Journal called it the biggest policy blunder of his presidency. The president responded in a tweet that trade wars are good and easy to win. He later threatened to tax European car imports. On the personnel front, President Trump publicly blasted Attorney General Jeff Sessions again, and new press reports revived an old rumor that National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster was on his way out. Following a day of questioning by lawmakers investigating Russian collusion, the president's longest-serving aide, Hope Hicks, announced her departure from the West Wing. Jared Kushner's security clearance was downgraded as the FBI continues to look into his business dealings. And on Friday, the New York Times reported that the president has privately asked White House Chief of Staff Kelly for his help in moving them, meaning Jared and Ivanka, out. Kelly also had a rough week, admitting to reporters he had not properly handled the security clearance issue, and Kelly aggravated the president when he joked at a celebration for his former department.
The last thing I wanted to do was walk away from one of the great honors of my life, being the Secretary of Homeland Security. But I did something wrong, and God punished me, I guess.
At an off-camera press dinner last night, the president made light of the chaos, joking that it's been another calm week at the White House, and it's finally running like a fine-tuned machine. With that, we begin this morning with South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. He joins us from Clemson, South Carolina.
You got to be kidding me.
Well, Senator, where do we begin here? Do you have a message to the president after this week?
Yes. As to guns, you have an obligation to give us a package to consider regarding school safety and guns. You did a good job talking in front of the country about the problem. Let's come up with solutions that are bipartisan. Propose something, Mr. President, and I think Republicans have an obligation to work with Democrats to make it law if we can. So that's guns. On trade, you correctly identified the problem of China dumping steel throughout the world to destroy the American steel industry. Your solution is let China off the hook. It's only going to hurt American consumers and our allies. Please reconsider your solution.
Well, sir, on the issue of personnel confusion and some policy confusion that you referred to there.
Can't help you on the personnel front.
Well, do you still have faith in Chief of Staff John Kelly? And now there are rumors once again about the fate of the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster. Are you confident in him?
I'm very confident in H.R. McMaster. I think he's learned as much about the war on terror from fighting it than anybody that I know. I think he's really smart on North Korea and Iran. I hope the president will keep him around, but it's up to the president. He can fire anybody he likes, but I have a lot of confidence in General McMaster. And John Kelly, to me, has created order out of chaos initially, is kind of backsliding now, but I think John Kelly is the right guy to continue to help the president organize his agenda. Have a lot of faith and trust in John Kelly. I hope he stays.
You just came back from the Middle East. Given the concerns about Jared Kushner's security clearance level being downgraded, do you still think that he can possibly lead this Middle East peace policy push without a full security clearance?
The last thing on my mind right now is the peace process. We're about to have a war between Israel and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Iran is winning and we are losing, so I went to Israel and Jordan. The King of Jordan is under siege because we have no policy as the United States regarding the Russian-Iranian axis. Southern Lebanon is a rocket launching site against Israel. They're developing precision-guided weapons, so I would focus on containing Iran rather than pushing a peace process that's broken. If we don't come up with a strategy against Iran, we're going to make Israel go to war here pretty soon with the Hezbollah elements in southern Lebanon.
Well, you're referring there, though, to the outgrowth of the war in Syria. The president was very clear. We're there just to get rid of ISIS and get out. Does he need to reconsider that policy? How do you fix the problem you identified?
Well, he said he did not want to turn Iran over, Syria over to Iran. We don't have a strategy to contain Iran. They're about to take over Damascus. He's done a good job fighting ISIL, but Iran is now dominating the Mideast. Hezbollah elements being supplied by Iran have over 100,000 missiles pointed at Israel. The King of Jordan has suffered mightily from the Syrian civil war. If we don't push Iran out and come up with an agreement in Geneva that gives Syria back to the Syrians, this war never ends. So, Mr. President, it's just not about defeating ISIL. If you leave Syria in the hands of Russia and the Iranians, this war never ends, and our friends in Israel and the world are hurt.
Do you know where the president's red line is on chemical weapons, which the Assad regime continues to use?
I thought I did, but I don't any longer. Clearly, he did use chemical weapons yet again. What I would like to see is a no-fly zone inside of Syria where people could go back to Syria from the surrounding neighborhood, and we would train Syrian Democratic forces to take Assad on and tell the Russians and the Iranians, if you bomb these people, you do so at your own peril, and try to level out the chaos in Syria. Go to Geneva to get a peace agreement. You'll never get an agreement in Geneva as long as Assad's winning on the battlefield. Our policy in Syria is a complete mess. We're AWOL when it comes to containing Russia and Iran in Syria, and that's a real threat to the region.
I want to get back to what you referred to there in regard to the president's surprise announcement on trade tariffs on steel and aluminum. You know, BMW has its largest plant in the world in your home state, and now the president's talking about putting taxes on European cars. What are you going to tell the president to do about this? Are you calling for a full reversal?
Bad idea. Here's what I would tell the president. The reason our steel industry's been decimated is because of China dumping. China produces more steel than the world consumes for several years in a row. China's your problem, Mr. President. Taxing European car imports hurts BMW because they can do the same thing to us. BMW makes more cars in Greenville, South Carolina than any plant in the entire BMW family. Volkswagen's come to South Carolina. We got a steel plant in South Carolina. We make more tires than any place in the United States. 32% of the tires exported from the United States comes from South Carolina. This tariff on steel is going to hurt them.
So you want the president to revise this to be more targeted specifically at Beijing and perhaps exempt certain countries?
You're letting China off the hook. China wins when we fight with Europe. China wins when the American consumer has higher prices because of tariffs that don't affect Chinese behavior. If you want to affect China, get back in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Be present in Asia. Hit them on intellectual property theft. Hit them on currency manipulation. Hit them about steel dumping. China is winning and we're losing with this tariff regime. You're letting China off the hook. You're punishing the American consumer and our allies. You're making a huge mistake here. Go after China, not the rest of the world.
On the issue of gun policy, you seem to think there was something possible to get done. I understand you're introducing a bill this week regarding so-called red flag policies that would allow authorities to seize guns before people commit violence. What kind of prospects do you see for this?
Really good prospects. The president did a good job talking about we should be able to do something to stop shootings like this. We tell our citizens, if you see something, say something. Well, everybody saw something and everybody said something, but the government did nothing. So under this bill, you could go to a federal judge, law enforcement people could, family members could, and petition for a restraining order when you got to make the case, give due process, this person's about to blow up here, they're becoming mentally unstable, create a system that would intervene. This guy was visited by the cops 30 times. People called the FBI, nobody did a damn thing. So this bill would allow judges to take guns away from a guy like this before it's too late. I hope the president will get behind this because it worked in Indiana, and that's where we're modeling our law off the Indiana law.
Very quickly, sir, do you have any idea if Republican leadership will take this to the floor? And it's a controversial issue in election year.
If we don't, we're going to get hurt because most Americans believe we should solve problems that Americans are facing, like gun violence and school safety problems. If we don't take this up and if Democrats don't work with us, we'll all suffer, and we should.
All right. Senator Lindsey Graham, thank you for joining us this morning from South Carolina. We turn now to Senator